Hello and welcome to the Pots and Trowels podcast with me, Martin, Jill and Sean.
Hello.
Hi.
And later on in this episode, we're going to find out a little bit about the procedure of introducing new plants to the market and also a little bit about the RHS Chelsea Plant of the Year competition.
And we'd like to thank our sponsors, Plant Grow, who make a range of mulches and composts and liquid feeds, all made from sustainable plant material in Norfolk.
And coming up later in the programme, how we can make the most of our snowdrops and do a little bit of multiplying.
And sharing, I guess.
Yes, sharing.
Yeah,
yes.
I like the word sharing. Sharing is caring.
Absolutely.
But first, shall we go and have a chat to Graham?
Graham, keen gardeners are always looking for new plants when they're at garden centres and nurseries and at the flower shows, and you're heavily involved in introducing new plants. So do you want to tell me what you do for a living?
Yes, we run a company called Plants for Europe Limited, which is a plant breeders agent. So we work with plant breeders from around the world to help them evaluate their new plants, to do some trials with them with commercial growers, protect them with intellectual property rights, which is a whole other world, and then bring them to growers and who might be small growers that working at a specialist level, but also the very large growers who supply to the garden centres, and set up the production and supply chain to ensure that plant actually gets to the retailers so that gardeners can buy it for their own garden.
So are these plant breeders that are all over, are they usually working for a company, or are they just, private individuals with a hobby that's sort of gone to the next level?
Both. So we work with what we call independent breeders, which are often people working their own back garden, or perhaps a small specialist nursery who has a little bit of breeding as a sideline, or not even sometimes formal breeding where they're just spotting a new seedling that's occurred or a spore or a mutation. But we also work with some of the biggest companies in the world, in fact including the biggest company in the world, a nursery in America that has 49 nursery locations all over the United States, grow literally tens of millions of plants a year. We look after their plant breeding as well in the European market.
So what is the process then? So I've got this plant that I've just bred. I think this has got a future in the horticultural world. I give it to you. What happens next, and how long does it take from my idea of this plant that I've bred to probably appearing on a garden centre shelf?
It can take years. So the first stage is that we will sit at our desks and look at the information you've sent to us. If you email us some photos and a description, we look at it and go, okay, this is something interesting. It may have a space in the market. We'll then share it with one or two of our trusted partners and say, is this something you might be interested in growing? The next step is to get some plant material from you to them so that they can do a trial and actually see that it works well in a nursery environment. We also try to do a garden trial at the same time to see if it is any blooming good. And then if it ticks those boxes, we have to set up a supply chain, often a clean stock, which will be held in a laboratory somewhere. So we have a virus-free stock that we can always go back to and actually get a launch plan. This process can take between 3 and 10 years, depending on the plant.
Wow. And I suppose there's an awful lot that don't make it that far. They get composted.
Sadly, yes. And we always say that the best breeders have the biggest compost heaps.
Good. So then when it is, you found one that is going to be okay, you've gone through the trials and done the tests and things, I suppose then you've got to have a huge amount of those plants. You can't suddenly have 200 or 300 because you're launching them not only, in the UK, they're probably going to be a worldwide one. So that, I suppose a lot of that is the bulking up, isn't it? The time you need.
If you think just about the UK market alone, there are somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 garden centres in the UK. Well, if you're just going to get 50 plants in each of those garden centres, that's 100,000 for the UK market. So having a few hundred doesn't quite cut it. We're a population of, 60-something odd million people in 22 million households in the UK. Yeah, we want some of those people to buy your plant. 200 doesn't go very far.
And the person that's done the breeding, I mean, they've probably been working on this for a number of years. Do they get a kickback from that? Or is it they sell you the plant as a one-off and that's their job done?
When we're working with the plant, the breeder always owns the plant. It's their plant, their property. If we take out an intellectual property right, it's in their name. They own that intellectual property right. How they earn money is that we collect a royalty for each plant that is sold. It's only a few pennies for each one, but if you're selling very large quantities, then it can add up to a useful income. Nobody's got a Mercedes-Benz out of plant royalties, but it's a useful income. I know some people have get an annual holiday out of it each year, or perhaps have it as a supplementary income in retirement.
And I suppose, yes, if you've done 2 or 3, it all adds up, doesn't it? So it's worth looking for those unusual things, isn't it, in the garden, or anybody could do it, essentially. Anybody could discover that plant that's going to be the next sensation in a garden centre.
And also the best plants have a long life. So we're working with some plants in our portfolio which have been being sold for 25, 30 years. So, yeah, okay, they're not selling the numbers when they were first launched and were exciting and new, but they're steadily selling and they're improving. People still want those varieties. They want the really good things. The best plants have a long life.
I suppose they become tried and tested plants in the garden. So a few that you've introduced over the years, can you think of any? Oh, I'm putting you on the spot now, Graham.
If I had 2 favourites, I would pick out a Juga Black Scallop, which is British bred. It was bred by Mike Tristram at Binsted Nurseries near Arundel in Sussex. That we launched in 2006, if my memory serves well, and is now the most popular Ajuga variety in the market in the world. A really reliable seller, a good plant, actually increasing in sales every year, and a really good, reliable variety, selected not only because it looks good, but because it grows well as well. The other one I'd pick on would be Euphorbia Ascot Rainbow, bred by David Glenn in Australia. We had great fun importing that from Australia. It didn't like travelling from the southern hemisphere to the north and really struggled for a while. We nearly threw it away. Thank goodness we didn't. It's now our biggest selling variety, extremely popular because it looks good 12 months of the year. From a garden centre or retailer's point of view, always looks interesting and colourful.
And looks good with the Ajuga, that contrast in colour, light variegated and that dark colour. Brilliant. Anything that might be on the horizon you're allowed to tell us about, or would you have to, kill me?
We generally keep things secret, but we have got a new Euphorbia coming along for later this year. And we have some new Veronicas, which if we can crack the little headache we got in production at the moment, we hope to launch in 2027. So there's always something new in the pipeline.
Thank you. We'll watch this space for those. Thank you, Graham.
Thank you.
Coming up, we've got some exciting exclusive news about an invitation Martin's had regarding the Chelsea Flower Show. She's not far off now in the scheme of things.
No.
It must be hotting up, is it? Things like... Anyway, we'll come to that
Yes,
later.
don't spill it now.
No. Anyway, and intellectual property rights, or IP. Now, I know IP as being things like if you write a song, you own the IP, you own the intellectual property rights, and therefore you get sort of copyright money if it goes big. So if Elton John sings a song written by, somebody, then, in theory, that person makes some money out of that. How does that work with plants?
Well, I'm assuming it's the same. It is like a copyright, isn't it? So if somebody has bred this plant, then they own the sort of rights to it, don't they? And I know that what they do get also is a plant breeder's right. So if I bred a new plant and it was introduced by Graham, on the label it would say PBR, and what I would get would be a small percentage of that every sale, and they're grown under license. So it means that Jill can't start a nursery and buy them and propagate them without a license. So they have to be grown on a licensed nursery, sold with the label in it, and then there is, I don't know what it is, penny, tuppence, whatever, is paid to the breeder. But hopefully there's thousands and thousands of these being sold, and it all adds up to bring a bit of income in. And I think it's quite complex, that one, because if you bought a plant and it's got plant breeders' rights on it and it's for your garden, there's nothing to stop you dividing it or taking cuttings to plant within your garden or give to a friend. But it's when you
commercial.
sell it. If you sell it, then you're in breach of the
Because you
plant
could never
breeder's
police
right.
that, could you?
No,
if you're
not
just
at all.
taking cuttings for yourself, it's impossible to police that.
Okay, so that's quite interesting.
That makes sense.
Because I think we've got a question on dividing things later. So
We have,
come
yes.
to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that is really interesting, because I don't think, if you go back to the 1980s and think about people taping things off the radio, and there was all this, you mustn't copy music.
That's right. And we all used to record Top of the Pops on a Sunday afternoon.
Absolutely, but officially we weren't supposed to. And I think they didn't worry about it too much unless you started making copies of it and selling it.
But that's why they
Perhaps
always
quite similar.
talked over the last little bit, isn't it? So that you couldn't record the whole song.
Oh, right, you'd always got the
Yeah.
DJ.
You had to be
was
there
always-
paused
yeah,
over the
yeah.
down from number 6.
You never just get there on
hanging
time.
on the pause button.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Sorry, right, okay.
It's going back to our
digress.
teenage years,
It
aren't
is.
we? But what a brilliant job. I mean, Graham must just love his job because you're getting first looks at all these possible new varieties of things. And I wonder how many get sort of sent in that he looks at and thinks, nah, it's not a chance this is going to go.
Yeah.
But you've got to let the growers down quite gently, I would think, haven't you? You don't want to...
Yeah, and obviously
Yeah.
the fashion plays a role in it as
Yeah.
well, because you might have some wonderful plants, but you're not, feeling them this year. or-
Exactly. So, I mean, Graham's got to have a take on what the market wants, but he said some of them can take up to 10 years. So
yeah, but
things
has
can
he
change.
though? Because it's not about fashion, is it? It's about the quality of the plant, isn't
I suppose
it?
so, but it
doesn't matter what the fashion is if it's still a good plant that's been bred.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's got to be a plant that somebody will want, and the colour. So you've got to have a good
Yeah.
idea. It's got to be something different, hasn't it?
Yes.
And new.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
no, interesting job.
And probably bulletproof, hardy in some
Yeah.
And
sense.
I suspect a lot of it is now building in disease resistance, and all of that
Yeah.
makes it a good
Yeah.
plant that can go through.
Yeah.
But there's a lot that don't make it to Chelsea of the Year, which is one of the things Graham's involved with as well. So which we're going to hear
talking
about,
about in a minute.
from Gracie in a few minutes. But no, fascinating job, fascinating.
Time for some questions, I think. And remember, if you've got a question for Martin or the team, drop us an email, info@pots&trowels.com, or leave us a comment on one of the videos. Are you ready for this one, Martin? This
Always
is
ready.
From Edwina in Derbyshire, and Edwina would like to know, can you suggest a fast-growing bush or vine that can create cover from the sun? So a fast-growing bush, or I suppose if it's a vine, it needs to go up something, so maybe a pergola or something.
I mean, yes, if you want to sit, because it's difficult. There's lots of fast-growing bushes. I mean, we're sitting in your dining room looking out, and in your neighbour's garden they've got a sambucus over there, which is the ornamental elderberry, really fast-growing. It will put 5-6 feet on in a year, but you can't really sit under it because it hasn't got a canopy. So I would say if you've got like a little pergola, then that would be the best thing. So you've got a little bit of an open roof to it, and grow something like a wisteria or one of the fast-growing clematis like montana, which would very soon go over and create this lovely dapple shade, or a honeysuckle, or some fast-growing shrubs like the sambucus that you can let grow, and you can then sit on the shady side of them.
Okay, all right. You got a question?
I have from a galanthophylle, which we know, of course, is a snowdrop lover. So it's Mary, and she's in Yorkshire, and she has got some Wendy's Gold. So your Wendy might be interested.
Well,
in
we
this.
did used to have some Wendy's Gold, but I think it's just got mixed in with everything else, and we don't know which is which anymore. So I'll be honest with you.
She's got some Wendy's Gold, the snowdrop, but her friend would love to have some as well, and they're quite expensive to buy, as we know. But that's another.
What's this lady's name?
This is Mary.
Mary
Are you
in
going
Yorkshire.
to visit?
I'm going to trawl Yorkshire.
Yes, Mary. Let us have your address.
Mary,
Martin might pop over.
Yes, if you're dividing them. I mean, I bought one a couple of weeks ago in a snowdrop garden in a small pot because it's lovely, a little snowdrop. But yes, I mean, now is the perfect time.
Well, her friend, that was the question, her friend would like some. So what is the best thing for Mary to do? Is she wait until the greens died down and get the bulbs, or can she do it now?
I mean, they will have finished flowering now. This year snowdrops were a bit later, but they've pretty much all gone over now. They'll have the little seed pods on, but they'll still have green leaves. And if you've got an established clump, this applies to any snowdrop, single, double, whatever it is. You can, if you want to make more plants out of that clump, then dig it up, getting as much root as you can as possible, and then just gently tease it apart, either into individual bulbs with a stem and leaf on, or little clumps, and then replant them around the garden. It's a good way of spreading them around, because then they will bulk up over the next few years and make a bigger clump. So perfect time to do it now. It's what we call in the green. You're lifting them in the green before they die down.
Okay, and you obviously can see what they are from,
Yes, and Mary, if you find you've got a little clump left at the end of it,
please post it to P.O. Box Martin at. Another question, also from Edwina, actually in Derbyshire, wondering about why their busy lizzies are getting mildew.
Right, well, it's a big problem with busy lizzies. It has been for a number of years now. They're prone to this mildew that makes the leaf go all this horribly grey colour. Some years it's worse than others. If we get a very dry and warmer summer, then it's not so much of a problem. If we get typical showers and humid weather, then this mildew just spreads. So it's a problem that I think there's been breeding, and maybe this is something that Graham would have known about, to introduce varieties that have got a natural resistance to it. Not all of them get it. Some are worse than others, and certainly what we call the New Guinea hybrids, the bigger sort of busy lizzies with those bigger flowers, don't think they get it. It's more the bedding type of busy lizzies. So there's nothing you can really do to stop it. It's just one of those problems that occurred several years ago, and it's the breeders are working hard to introduce new varieties.
Are there any watering techniques you can avoid? That, I'm just thinking, if you water from above too much and it's standing wet, is that?
Yeah, no, that's good tip, really. Don't water over the top of it. You want to keep the foliage as dry as possible. Grow it in an open position where it's got a bit of breeze growing through it as well, so it's not.
That can help.
Let some airflow.
Airflow. That
won't
type
stop
of thing.
it, but it might.
So don't give up trying. But
Yeah.
it's one of those things that will keep happening, I'm afraid.
Well, remember, if you've got a question for Martin or anyone of the team, drop us an email, info@potsandtrowels.com. Shall we go and find out about Plant of the Year?
Yes.
Yeah,
let's
from
do.
Gracie.
Gracie, one of your roles within the RHS is looking after a competition every year that's called Plant of the Year, and it takes place at the Chelsea Flower Show. So tell us, what exactly is Plant of the Year?
So Chelsea Plant of the Year is effectively a showcase for new and innovative plant breeding. So what we like to do every year is invite breeders, retailers, plant agents, nurseries to bring forward their plants, the ones they've bred. Tell us what's special or unique about them, and then Chelsea Plant of the Year will showcase those plants. Our expert groups will make a decision about the best ones. Those will be announced, and there'll be a lot of excellent publicity around that. It's really about showcasing and promoting new plant breeding and innovation in plants.
And these have to be plants that haven't been previously sold before, so they are brand new plants, aren't they?
Yeah, this is all about innovation. So the plants that haven't been sold before, they're coming new to the market, and ideally we want them to be special. Why are they different? How are they different from other cultivars? There has to be a special, unique selling point.
Yeah. So do you go out to plant agents like Graham, who I've just spoken to, or do they tend to gravitate to you? Because it's a great honour to have a plant in the Plant of the Year, I suppose, isn't it?
I think agents like Graham, they know the competition, they understand its value and its power. So I think it's becoming a two-way process. I would talk to agents like Graham about the competition and what we need. He would also be out there looking for great new plants and the ones that he thinks would work at Chelsea. Spectacular plants that look great in May is what we're looking for.
So it's quite a big competition for you to stage manage, isn't it? Because how many plants will be there on display at the Chelsea Flower Show?
So we shortlist up to 20. So it will be 20 plants, but they have to be absolutely at the top of their game. These are absolutely beautiful plants. They're real sort of display of plantsmanship. It's about innovation, but it's also about spectacle as well.
Yes, and it's got to be something that is different to something that's gone before,
Yes.
isn't it? That's the whole idea.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we have a judging criteria, and the key criteria for plants that would place at Chelsea would be innovation. They have to have a feature that is different and new to the market.
Okay, and then you mentioned the judging is done by sort of committee, by expert groups. So how is that done? I mean, I should know this but I want you to explain it. You can say it better than me.
Okay, so there's two phases of judging. The first thing we do is that all of the entries get put in front of an expert panel. These are experts and specialists within the RHS, but they're also industry experts as well, who will look at all of the entries and decide which are the absolute best. So they'll pick out the top 20 or up to 20 of the best plants. These will then go on to the show, these 20, they'll be showcased there. Then we invite RHS expert groups. There's about 215 experts in total from all over the horticulture industry, huge amounts of expertise and knowledge. They will look at the plants and then they will make the decision about which one is the absolute best, and that will win.
Yeah, and it's a great platform to launch these, because then they go on to be obviously sometimes best sellers for years and years to come, don't they?
They do. I mean, Chelsea is unique in that we have mainstream media attention. I mean, all kinds of people follow Chelsea from all over the world, so it's the best platform if you want to launch a new plant.
Okay, so if anybody wants to see them, if they're going to Chelsea, whatever day it is, the plants will be on display. and it gets television coverage and media coverage as well. So look out for it. So at this point, I suppose you're just collating plants that are possible runners for the competition.
Yep. So entry is open to any of the exhibitors who have stands in their floral marquee. So the entry form is online. So if you think you have something interesting, then we'd love to see it.
Okay. Well, when we know what it is in May, at the end of May, we'll give it a mention on the podcast. Thank you, Gracie.
Amazing. Thank you, Martin.
So coming up, we've got another job that we need to be doing now. This is one that
Time
you've got to be
critical.
doing
Yes.
it this weekend.
As soon as you've
yeah.
listened to this podcast,
Get
you're
out there and do
with
it.
your secretaries.
So we'll hear that in a little while. But Gracie, fascinating job again. We've had two people this week, haven't we? Really, with really good jobs. And it's not that long till Chelsea now, is it? So everybody's. I guess what stage would those people be at who are entering a plant of the year? They're going to be. It's not going to be ready to show
Presumably
yet,
they've
is
got
it?
multiple stages.
Yeah,
to-
well, I mean, we're 2 months away because here we are, middle of March. Chelsea is the third week in May, so we're a couple of months away. And the selection hasn't been. The final
So the
selection
first lot
hasn't been
of
selected
judging,
yet.
yeah.
So what happens is there'll be lots of people entering plants, and then there is a panel that will pick. I think it's around 20.
Yes,
Gracie
20,
said,
Gracie
isn't it?
said, yeah.
That go forward then to Chelsea of the year. So not everything automatically goes through.
I'm always a bit lastminute.com, so I'd probably be getting the seed out of the
Yeah.
bucket.
Yeah,
right now.
you
Just
wouldn't be
starting
any
to-
good on
starting
this
to put it on. But we did say right at the beginning there was some exciting news about you, didn't we?
Yes.
Oh, there is, yes. Well,
Are you allowed to tell us?
I think so. Yes, I don't think it's a trade secret. And if not, I've been invited to be on that selection panel this year, which is not taking place for about
Right,
another
just go
month.
get my seeds. Then. Hang on.
Yes.
You're slipping the tenner.
That's
a bit.
right. Yes. Yeah. This lettuce you got from Morrison's won't do as a vegetable.
You've got
I'm
your
afraid.
potatoes. They'll be they'll
it's
be
not,
growing.
It's not new. It's got to be something that's never been sold before.
yeah.
So
She
it's
did
got to
say
be
that.
new.
Yeah.
So that's happening in April. So
Right.
the final selection will be made then, and they will be the plants that will then be on show in the Plant of the Year area at Chelsea this
But then
year.
you're because you're on the one of the expert committees,
Yes.
you then do the judging at Chelsea as well.
Yeah, we
don't
don't do it together. It's done. Some of the judges do it online. It's basically anybody that is on an expert plant group for the RHS, which there are lots and lots of us because there are lots of different groups.
Yeah, because they don't all go to Chelsea.
No,
to the
they
actual show.
can judge online, but every
Right.
plant will be there in a beautiful display, so you can go along and you vote for it. So you've actually seen them in the flesh, as it were.
So if you're growing a plant that looks its best in September, there's not a chance you can ever enter that, is
It's
there?
more difficult. I mean, if
Yeah.
it's a foliage plant, you probably could, but if it's
Yeah.
a naturally an autumn flowering one, unless you've got some grower that can manipulate it and bring it into flower for May, then no, they've got to look good. You're judging what you see at the end of the day.
So fruit trees, for instance, they're not going to be ever being in fruit, are they? But I guess the blossom.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, and there is a write-up on each one. So
Well, you bring it in from a different country or something.
Well, yeah, I suppose. But everybody, there was a write-up on the background of it, and what it's the positives about it are. So
Well, because wasn't the winner last year? That was a
it was
fruit.
a flowering cherry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ah, okay.
Prunus
Right.
Starlight, which was introduced by Frank Matthews, who a couple of weeks ago we spoke about a new pear tree they're going to introduce to the garden centre market this year. So
That
yes.
delicious pear juice.
That's
Yes.
right. Yes.
Yeah.
So and what they tend to do, although they're being introduced by big nurseries and agents like Graham, the plants are usually featured on the displays around the great pavilion at Chelsea. So I think last year it was Green Jam Nurseries had the flowering cherry on their display, so people can see them in a different
beautiful.
situation as
Yeah.
well. So it's a very well regarded competition, that the trade really embrace.
Well, they get a lot of publicity,
Yes,
don't they? Because
yeah.
it's featured so much on the telly.
That's right.
And then, so it's bound to boost sales, isn't it?
Yeah.
Something new.
So watch this space. But I don't get to know anything till it's made public
Yeah.
anyway. It's all embargo, so there's no trying to get
So
any.
that's it. That's all we're going to get out of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll keep trying, don't worry, listeners. We'll keep trying. Remember, if you've got a question for Martin or anyone on the team, drop us an email, info@potsandtrowels.com. But we did say there's something they need to go and grab their secretary secateurs and get out there in the garden. What is it?
Roses.
We need to be doing?
If you haven't pruned your roses, do it now.
Okay.
Yeah. Have you got any roses in your garden, Sean?
Yeah, we've got a couple.
Well, have you pruned them yet?
Back in autumn, yeah.
Yeah. But have you done your spring prune? Because they are now budding up nicely. You know, you're getting those new buds. It's not the end of the world if you don't do it today or this week. You can prune them quite late, but it just sets them back a little bit, because if they're already starting to show signs of growth and you cut them down, they've got to start again. So I'm going to finish ours off and just, take out any dead, diseased or damaged wood and then prune back to that framework, ideally to an outward growing bud if you can, but it's not essential. Just reducing them in height will encourage some nice strong growth from the base.
I was just going to say I've been reticent because a year or two ago I thought I knew what I was doing and took them right back to ground level at this time of year. So yeah, I will do them, but yeah. Okay.
Well, do you remember, I think it was last year, for our videos we went to the National Holocaust Centre in Nottinghamshire, and they have hundreds and hundreds of white roses. It's iceberg, and the head gardener asked me to go in and give her a bit of advice, and we filmed it for a Pots and Trowels. We did a few to show her, then she did them all with her team of volunteers and gardeners, and we suggested cutting them back harder than they'd been cut back for several years. And she said they were the best they'd flowered for years. So cutting them back does encourage strong growth.
Fantastic. Yeah. Good. And anyway, I interrupted you. I think you were going to go on and give us some more jobs.
Oh, was it? Oh, yeah, I'll just carry away with that. Well, just quick is, if you want to put some strawberries in now, you'll get them from garden centres. They'll be in pots, so they're not bare root, but still perfectly good, so you can put them into bigger pots to grow on or plant them in the garden, so you'll get some strawberries this season. Great for getting children gardening.
Sorry, can I just ask a quick question? One of my knit and natter ladies was saying, how many strawberry plants would you put in a basket?
3.
So okay, in an
12-inch,
12-inch,
14-inch basket, 3, and that will fill that space, and the basket, the strawberries will then cascade over the side.
Lovely. I'll pass that on.
Get them done now and you'll still get a crop this summer. And in the veg garden, things are hotting up. We're getting ready to start the sowing. If you're down in the south, I'm sure you're already sowing and planting, but where we are a bit further north, sort of East Midlands, I'm going to be in the next week or so doing some seed sowing and getting my potatoes in. And but it's making sure the ground's ready, it's cultivated and all ready to go. So it's all exciting in the veg pot.
Good stuff. Well, I think we're probably running out of time with these longer and longer podcasts that we're doing.
We've never quite made an hour.
Oh no, we're working on it. But no, it's been fantastic to hear from our guests this week, and also obviously having these questions. So remember, send us your questions, review us if you have the time, and otherwise we're going to see you next week.
Yeah, thank you for listening. See you soon. Bye.
Watch the videos on YouTube or Facebook, follow us on Instagram, Twitter or X, and subscribe to the podcast and never miss a thing. For more information, go to potsandtrowels.com.